Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 17, 2020 Urbandale City Council meeting, and I'll ask the clerk to begin roll call, please.
Blake?
Here.
Carberry Montgomery?
Here.
Obrecht?
Here.
Hoagie?
Here.
Russell?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. I'll ask for a motion in a second, please.
So a motion by Obrecht, second by Pogie.
Okay, discussion, please vote.
Councilmember Carberry Montgomery, I don't see that yours has come through quite yet. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, we're hear this quickly. And that passed, thank you. All right, item 3, we do have two very special presentations tonight. First is the oath of office for Officer Tanner Miller for the Urbandale Police Department, and I'm going to recognize Chad Underwood right now. Chad, if you could introduce Tanner for us, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, members of the City Council. Today I'm here to present our newest officer, Tanner Miller. Tanner Miller is an Iowa native growing up in Council Bluffs, Iowa. After graduating from Council Bluffs Lewis Central High School in May of 2016, Tanner continued his education, attending Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, where he received an associate's degree in criminal justice in May of 2018. Officer Miller started his career with Urbandale Police Department on April 13th of this year. Officer Miller attended the 292 Iowa Law Enforcement Basic Training Class. He received his Iowa Law Enforcement Academy certification in August of 2020, and I present to you, the council and the mayor, Officer Tanner Miller.
Thank you, Chad. These are for you to take afterwards as we get it from me, okay? Tanner, if you raise your right hand, please. I, Tanner Miller,
I, Tanner Miller,
with the City of Urbandale,
with the City of Urbandale,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of the Office of Police Officer
as the Office of Police Officer
of the City of Urbandale, Iowa,
of the City of Urbandale, Iowa,
as now and hereafter required by law.
as now and hereafter as required by law.
Congratulations. I'll give you a thumbs up. I'd
Thank
like to
you.
shake your hand,
That's
but I'll
all
give
right.
you a thumbs up. You can sign right here, Tanner. Thank you. Tanner, I wish we had a full room here tonight to welcome you to Urbandale, but we don't, obviously, with the pandemic. It's too bad we have to do this during a pandemic, but that's the way it is. But we're still welcoming you to Urbandale, so thanks for joining the Urbandale family. Wish we had your brothers and sisters in blue here with you tonight, but you have Chad and you have the chief here tonight with you to support you. I know you have your girlfriend here, so
Yes, I do.
thank you for joining Urbandale. And I know you're going to keep us safe, and our pledge is to keep you safe as elected officials. So
Thank you, sir.
welcome to Urbandale, and I want to thank you. Want to introduce your girlfriend real quick?
Oh, yeah. My girlfriend, Marty, back there. Been with her for 2 years.
Marty, thank you for being here as well. So thank you for being his support system. He's going to need support. There's going to be some good days and some not so good days. So thank you for supporting him and Again, our pledge is to keep them safe. So Tanner, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Chad, did you want? All right, after this ring, we'll move on then to item 3.2. And we do have some new employees in the Urbandale family as well. We'd like to introduce them tonight. So first, I'm going to recognize Human Resource Director Aaron Freeman. So AJ, did you want to start off and introduce Aaron a little bit? Or Aaron, I'll just turn it over to you either way.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And again, we normally, under normal circumstances, we do bring around our new directors to the council meeting to introduce and put the name and the face together. You know, we're a small enough organization that there's a lot of interaction that the council has with our directors, whether at presentations, at council meetings, budget discussions, lunch and learns. We want to make sure that we have that connection. Unfortunately, because of the COVID situation, we're unable to do that. Erin has been with us for a couple of months now. She replaced Carl Lauer, our former HR director. We're just very pleased to have Erin with us right now. She brings with us a wealth of information and experience. As I've said a number of times, we are willing to go steal talent wherever we can find it. And we found this talent at Polk County. So I'm sure the folks at Polk County are a little angry that we swooped in and stole Erin, but their loss is our gain. So, and again, we have Mr. Nicholas Janning is our new library director. We'll introduce him after we get through the introductions with Erin, and we'll give her a chance just to introduce herself, give a little of her background, and then we'll move on.
All right, well, welcome, Erin.
Thank you, AJ. I appreciate the introduction. I am also an Iowa native, like our newest police officer, Tanner Miller. So I've lived in Iowa my whole life and went to the University of Iowa. After I graduated Iowa in business, I moved to Urbandale, where I lived for 10 years and started my family and really enjoyed the community. But 5 years ago, my family and I moved out to Van Meter, and that's where we reside now. We're enjoying that as well. It's a nice little community not too far away from town. And as AJ mentioned, I've spent the last 8 years at Polk and Dallas counties, so very familiar with the county side of things, although the city isn't all that different, but I know a lot of the same players. So it's nice to have those connections at the county level, whether it be emergency management coordinators or some of the county supervisors, and a lot of those city county type operations cross over. So it's nice to have some of those connections. I have definitely hit the ground running the last 3 months. There's plenty going on. As AJ said, this is not a normal time in a pandemic. I really do look forward to the opportunity to meet you all in person and get back to a little bit more of normal business operations. But in the meantime, have met most of the staff. I'm grateful that everyone's been very welcoming. And Carla, of course, was phenomenal and left in wonderful conditions. So it was easy just to kind of pick up and hit the ground running. But I'll entertain any questions anyone has. But otherwise, it's nice to get in front of you today, finally talk a little bit. And again, just look forward to working with each of you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Erin. And any questions from the council for Erin tonight? Well, again, welcome aboard, Erin. And I know as we move along, we're going to be seeing a lot more of you as we discuss certain HR items. But welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And AJ introduced Nicholas briefly. I had a chance to meet Nicholas the other day when we were filming the State of the City at the library, but Nicholas, I'll recognize you now, and if you want to introduce yourself to everybody, that'd be great.
Well, hi, thank you, Mayor. I'm Nicholas Janning. I'm very excited to be here in Urbandale. I've been here for about 2.5 weeks. I just recently came from the Ankeny Library, where I worked there for several positions for about 7 years. Originally from Carroll, Iowa. Went to Drake University, so not too far away, and then Indiana University. But I've been very impressed by all the staff here at the Urbandale Library. Been getting to know the staff, the operations here. They've been doing a great job with the curbside service. Been doing a really good job with the virtual programs while we've been closed. So I've been very impressed by their operations here. I look forward to working with all of the citizens in Urbandale and working with all of you, our elected representatives. So thank you very much, and look forward to hopefully seeing all of you in person sometime and also working with you.
All right, great, thanks, Nicholas. Any questions for Nicholas from the council? Well, again, Nicholas, welcome aboard to you as well, and we look forward to working with you too, and hopefully we can get a few more patrons in the library sooner than later. So I know it's been a difficult time for the library, obviously for the operations, but hopefully we can get back to normal sooner than later. So welcome aboard. All right, we'll move on to item 4, and that's Citizens Forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's regular agenda. And I know that Deborah Thompson asked to be recognized first. So Deborah, I'm going to recognize you first. So you can just please again just state your name and address for the record, and then your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Deborah Thompson. I live at 2801 68th Street in Urbandale, 50322. So I'm an Urbandale resident, and I am a public health professional and a volunteer for the Iowa Public Health Association. I do have some prepared remarks. I'm here to strongly encourage the City Council to pass a face covering requirement, and to do so for several reasons. So first, I just want to say that the protection of the public health is a central task of government. It's one that symbolizes more than anything else that we are a republic and not simply a private society of autonomous citizens. Response to this pandemic is a three-legged stool. We have contact tracing, vaccine, and mitigation strategies like a face covering requirement. But we don't have the vaccine just yet, and without mitigation strategies, the effects of the contact tracing are actually very limited. So what we really need now is a unified effort from all of the authority figures in this city and in Polk County, because one or two sectors, public health and healthcare, can't fight this pandemic alone. Many businesses in the area have also done their part to help, and that demonstrates a pro-public health measure, that pro-public health measures are also pro-economic ones. So I'd appreciate law enforcement and local officials like yourselves stepping up as well, because Iowans are rule followers. They will listen. This pandemic continues to redefine what it means to keep people safe, and government units alike were created to maintain the health and public safety of the population. And they have to do it in collaboration with one another, in solidarity with one another, and not in ineffective or inefficient silos. And I understand completely that the public are tired of COVID, but they really don't appreciate the exhaustion of public health and health practitioners statewide who are on the front lines and who I speak to regularly. It's really hard to hear the exhaustion in their voices. We just don't have the bandwidth anywhere in the state to have this response continue as it is. It's the definition of insanity. So please begin the process of using your home rule authority to join other cities and counties across Iowa who have taken this action and have done so for the safety of constituents, the sanity of frontline fighters, and for the health of the local economy. I sincerely appreciate your own service to the public and for letting me submit comments to you today. I have provided some information that the Iowa Public Health Association has put together to Councilwoman Carberry Montgomery and Councilman Blake. You all might find it useful too, so I would ask that they forward it on to you all as colleagues. I'm also going to inappropriately say I love the library. Thank you for having that as a community resource. And because I have to go cook dinner and I can't hang out, I'm also very supportive of codifying the anti-racial profiling. I understand and support and love the fact that Urbandale has taken the step to make it a policy, but it sends a greater cultural message for all leaders in the police department in the future if we make sure that this is codified. It's just an extremely powerful move. And so, again, thank you all for your service and for my minutes. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. All right,
Mayor,
is there anyone else?
for me to ask a question of Deborah?
Okay.
Deborah, in your professional opinion as a public health practitioner, what is your opinion on the what the governor issued last night? Is that broad enough to require mask mandates? I've heard so many competing pieces of information today, and I'm just wondering, in your professional opinion, what your interpretation of what she said last night is.
My interpretation in terms of y'all's authority to pass a mandate in addition to her proclamation, or just whether or not what she put in will be effective?
Well, I guess if you think what she put into effect last night is sufficient, or if you think additional local ordinances are necessary to diminish the confusion regarding the 15 minutes, 6 feet apart.
Right. Yeah, she really sliced and diced. And I have seen, and even today, there's a regular call of local health practitioners. The local agency administrators get together every Tuesday, and they're having to answer a lot of questions from constituents. What I think it does is help with the PR piece. I am for enforcement, but I understand that that's kind of a mixed bag. What I'm looking for and what I think is beneficial from the municipalities, the cities and the counties is that unified front. Yes, we have a very nuanced set of requirements that went into effect as of midnight, but if cities and counties are continuing to pass these mandates, continuing to beat this drum, continuing to remind citizens that it's that serious, that this sort of government unification and authority is necessary, all it can do is help. And I'm telling you guys, we need your help. We need your help. There are people that have not had a minute's rest since March. You guys are very busy people, but you can't appreciate that. You really can't. And so I think that anything, I'm not going to criticize. I don't know what it's like to be the governor of this state right now. I am pleased that something has been done. But again, I think it takes all levels of government and all a unification of authority figures to really, really help Iowans understand the importance of this and to get in line and to lockstep behind fighting this pandemic. Does that answer your question? Okay, good.
All right. Thank you. I think Don McCormick had asked to be recognized, so Don, I will recognize you now.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Don McCormick, and I live at 4408 160th Street in Urbandale. I am a former Iowa Department of Public Health employee. I actually worked with Deb, and Deb, it's never inappropriate to say you love the library. So I'm completely behind you on that. During my time at Public Health, I served as a communication specialist and a public information officer, and the time I spent there was more than 7 years. My job was to arrange interviews with people not as eloquent as I, including Deb. Deb, thank you very much for your comments. I'll just expand on them just briefly here. As of Sunday, there were 1,279 Iowans in the hospital with COVID. Of those, 102 were children under the age of 18. Iowa has the third highest rate of COVID infections in the United States. And For people who compare this to the flu, it's not like the flu. It's unlike any flu season we've ever seen, at least in recent history. This is really taxing on our hospital system, and it's a true crisis. We had a record 7,124 cases in a single day last week. By contrast, the entire state of New York had only 3,149 on the same day. So I urge this body to implement and enforce the following: a local mask mandate immediately for all persons, employers, and employees in Urbandale, and not contingent on the time frame established by the governor for the statewide mandate. I do believe, as Deb pointed out, that you have a local voice and you're responsible for the people locally in your community. Also, I urge a ban on all gatherings outside of immediate family for at least the next 2 weeks, and to be reassessed near the time of that 2 weeks ending. A ban on all sports and activities outside the home for at least the next 2 weeks. This includes private sports arenas and reduced hours of operation and capacity for non-essential businesses. Thank you very much. And as I said before, I'm very glad that I'm very happy to echo many of the things that Deb said. She is a consummate public health professional, and we would do well to listen to her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized at this time to address the council on this, something that's not a part of tonight's agenda? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. I'll just briefly address this at this time as far as our response. I appreciate your comments, Deb and Don. I certainly take this very seriously as mayor of Urbandale, as I know the council does as well. And this impacts Urbandale significantly, and we all know of folks that have been impacted. Some of our council have been impacted by this personally. So, I've been putting out the PSAs as much as I can on this. I've been monitoring and listening to the status calls. We are actively working on this. I understand the request for a mandate. I will say this at this point: there is going to be, I think, further action taken locally. We're working at a regional level to come up with a consolidated response to this thing, and I've been actively discussing that as late as this afternoon. So I guess bear with us, stay tuned with us. We realize this is impactful and needs to be addressed, and we realize this is a crisis, and we need to get the numbers turned around. So I appreciate your comments. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item 5, the adoption of the minutes. First, item 5.1, the November 3, 2020 meeting. I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Carberry Montgomery. Second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Then item 5.2, the minutes from the November 10, 2020 meeting.
A motion by Carberry Montgomery. Second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. Thank you. Item 6 is the consent agenda. We have 20 items for approval.
And Mr. Mayor, the item 6.16, the event has been requested to be removed from consideration, please.
All right, so I'll ask for a motion as amended to approve that.
Motion by Pogge, second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. All right, thank you. That passes. All right, Okay, we'll move on then to item 7.1 is the public hearing for ordinance 2017 amending the licensed wine and beer permits. The public notice for this was published in the November 7, 2020 Des Moines Register, and as the clerk with any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
And I'll ask for a motion to open the public hearing. A second.
The motion by Pogge. And second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. All right, the staff has asked that this be continued to the next regular meeting, but before we do, I am going to ask if there was anybody here tonight that wanted to address the council on this item, not knowing it was going to be continued. I'll recognize you tonight if you are here to speak on this item tonight. Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion and a second to continue this to the next meeting.
Apologies for the delay. I have a motion by Obrecht and second by Pogge.
Okay, discussion, please vote.
I should be a yay.
That passes. Thank you. Item 7.2 is ordinance 2019 amending chapter 33 regarding the police department. The public notice for this was also published in the November 7, 2020 Des Moines Register. I ask if there are any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
Ask for motion and a second to open the public hearing.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. Introducing this item is our city manager, AJ Johnson. AJ, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I will also at some point defer to Police Chief Johansson for any particular definition, clarification, explanation of the activity that is before you tonight. Again, a little history. During this past summer, the council conducted a work session on race and diversity in the community. And at that time, a number of items were discussed by the council of how the community, how you as representatives of the community could look at issues and policies and potential ordinances, items that were under your control to ensure that activity within the police department in particular, but activity at the city level was as fair and balanced as possible in delivery of those services to all of our residents. During that discussion, the police chief had identified a number of items that are currently under the preview of our CALIA accreditation program. We spoke about this when you established the public hearing, and the CALIA accreditation program has been established and in place in the city of Urbandale since 2013. We are one of but a handful of public agencies, public law enforcement agencies, that has gone through the effort, the energy, and the time to become accredited. Very briefly, accreditation process is a national standard established by a number of nationally recognized organizations that deal in law enforcement, law-related issues, and that they have hundreds, literally hundreds, 400 to 500 different standards and policies that you must adhere to before you're an accredited police department. That process took 2 years to accomplish here in the city, and we're quite proud that recently we received our reaccreditation on Friday, November 13th. Essentially, those policies are our guiding principles along with state and federal laws and other ordinances that our officers are sworn to uphold. The policies dealing with what we have in the ordinance here tonight are one of just a handful that the chief pre-identified, that if the council wished to take a further step than just our accreditation process, that you could consider incorporating them into an ordinance form, that they would then become, as we've talked about a number of times, under the preview of the council, and as much as they wouldn't be a policy that would be able to be changed by myself, the police chief, or any administrative official. They would have to be altered or changed by the elected body of the city of Urbandale, the ordinance. What you have before you tonight is a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 33, which is the police department, to include the prohibition of bias-based profiling. Also, that was included in the language was the language about harassment as a pretextual stop component of the operations as well. I would defer to the chief to explain if there are questions about those two components of the policy that is before you to be codified tonight. I think they're self-explanatory, but if you do have questions, I would defer to Chief Johansson. Again, this was placed on your agenda following your public, your meeting you had last time and the meetings that we had this summer. This is also, there's an accompanying item, 9.1 under your agenda for the resolution for the maintenance accreditation by the Commission of Accreditation and Law Enforcement Agencies, which is the CALEA organization I made reference to. Prior to tonight's meeting, we distributed to you comments that were provided by Councilmember Pogge. He was kind enough to review that from a council perspective, and I know he shared his comments with you on a marked up agenda, on a marked up ordinance and resolution. I would defer to him for any comments you may have about his comments about that. But if there aren't any comments for me or questions, I would also defer any questions you may have procedurally to Chief Johansson on this issue before we open it up for public comment.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Are there any questions before we get started on the public hearing? Okay, I am not hearing any. Then I will open it up. This item is a public hearing, and I'll address this matter to those who want to comment on it. I think I had an email from Jane Robinette earlier today. So Jane, I haven't seen if you're on or not, but if you are, I will recognize you first if you'd like to make your comments first.
Thank you. My name is Jane Robinette. I live at 4302 131st Circle in Urbandale. And I want to thank you for proposing a separate ordinance that prohibits bias-based profiling in Urbandale. I think a standalone ordinance is important because merely requiring accreditation by CALEA doesn't help residents of Urbandale know what CALEA standards are or how the police department is meeting those standards. Also, police departments are and should be accountable to the residents of the communities they serve on important issues like this, not just accountable to accreditation services, no matter how rigorous. And I don't mean to suggest that I don't think it's important for Urbandale to be accredited, but I don't think it's enough on this issue. And that leads to my concerns about the ordinance as written. First, it puts the burden of correcting bias-based profiling on the person who has been profiled. That person who is already in a vulnerable position has to file a complaint with the same police department or the city manager to have it be investigated by the internal affairs unit of the same police department. The process is very internalized and nearly guarantees that profiling is seen as an individual act as opposed to a possible systemic problem. A complaint process is important, but the council should give due consideration to an alternative process of investigation, perhaps lodging it with the City Civil Rights Commission or a newly formed Citizens Advisory Board. Second, because the proposed process is only complaint driven, it not only individualizes the issue, but is also hidden and except for the training items is largely reactive. Instead, requiring the collection of demographic info, reasons, and outcomes for every stop and interaction would give a more systemic view of where problems may be and allow the department to address them earlier and more completely. Quarterly or annual reporting of those statistics to the public would lend transparency to what is actually occurring. Finally, no one currently serving on the council will probably ever experience this type of profiling, nor will I. And that's why I've brought this up before. I think it is so important for the council to form a group with a robustly diverse membership to advise the city on what we may not fully understand and appreciate, and what might be helpful in addressing those issues. A citizens advisory board could serve that function, as well as reviewing complaints, etc. I appreciate your efforts to make progress, but I urge you to go beyond CALEA and maybe look to other cities' work, for instance, the 2019 ordinance in University Heights, to more fully address profiling and other issues. And to be clear, I am not assuming there are current problems, but putting something in place now would be appropriate and proactive. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jane. We don't have anybody else. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to be recognized on this item tonight? Okay, I am not hearing anyone. So with that, I will ask then for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
A motion by Pogge, second by Blake to close the public hearing.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. I believe, probably I would assume there's going to be some discussion that the council would like to have on this. So I will open it up to the council then for discussion before a motion in a second. So who would like to start us off?
Well, let me start off because I circulated to all the council a red line version of the ordinance. Let me explain. There's two things going on. One of them is just some cleanup, which I felt was beneficial. But there's two important things that I think it does. First of all, instead of establishing a policy, my changes would just have the police department prohibit it. It's much stronger language, I think. It doesn't require a policy and then the policy is enforced. It just says you shall not have bias-based profiling. The second thing it does, and I tried to do this in the section discriminatory pretextual stops, I wanted to make sure that our police officers don't have to worry if someone blows a red light, they have the right to pull them over and give them a ticket, regardless of what race they are or anything else. And I want to make sure that we're aware of that and that we aren't trying to hamstring those types of operations. Now, if they're pulling over nobody but blacks and giving them a hard time, that's a whole different situation. And this ordinance is designed to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's why I did it and sent it out, and the council all has it, so you can review it.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Matt, you've got your mic open. I'll recognize you next.
Yep. I would just like to say, Ron, I do appreciate a lot of the changes you made, and I would second pretty much all of it. I do have a couple questions for the chief regarding some of the current policies that are in place. And again, I should have probably just sent it to him and had this offline, but I do have a couple questions for him regarding some of the language specifically. So if he's there, this is the warning. So again, to kind of, in some ways, to reflect some of what the comments that were said before us, I do have a question. If somebody, again, because this policy exists currently, if somebody has a complaint and they bring it forward, how does the public know that interaction, and how do they get that complaint filed?
I'm going to jump in with answer that question, Councilman Blake. That so they can contact. There's a number of different ways. We have you can file a complaint on our website, so you can do it that way. You can obviously call. You can come down to the station, and we will take any type of complaint, anonymous, third party. It doesn't matter. It does not have to be the person that this happened to. If somebody else witnessed it, we'll take the complaint that way. We take the complaints from our own employees also, if they were the witness of it or witness of another officer doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing or inappropriate. So those are the ways you can file a complaint with us. Basically any way you want. We get letters every once in a while, but mainly I would say we get them through email or for phone, or we actually have a lot of people that will walk in the front lobby and complain as well.
Okay. And then I know in this it says any external complaint shall be filed with the police department as set by yourself, the police chief, or with the city manager. And my assumption is that is creating a two-prong approach where you can file with you and with your, but then AJ is a person that could receive these and has that. And AJ, do you have that as a process that's set up as well?
Right now, no, it's not included in that process. So much like what the chief said, I've received some complaints in my tenure here, not very many. I refer them to the established process and they work their way through that. And I can't recall that has not served someone. Whether or not it has or not, I don't recall that being brought to my attention. But right now, I don't have a process set up in my office to independently or on a parallel track those either.
I'm only bringing this up because there is the issue that I do believe is a valid issue, is that if somebody has a complaint, the idea then if they are the one that is feeling they've had complaints from the police department, and then they have to go to the police department in order to make that complaint, I do find that potentially as an issue. I know that there's ways to write in and all that. So all I'm saying, it does reflect the language in the code saying that, or with the city manager. I would recommend that upon passage of this, that we would look at a procedure that somebody could go to City Hall, or there is another way to put it. Then another question I have, sorry, I had a couple of them.
Hey, Matt, can I ask a question before, if you're moving on to a different subject?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so if we put, I guess, does currently, if a complaint comes in to you, Rob, do you notify AJ automatically of that, or does that not necessarily happen?
No, I don't notify AJ. If we get a complaint, and if we're talking about a complaint on racial bias or profiling, that complaint goes to our internal affairs division, an investigator. That's our investigation division commander, Captain Logsden. We put it in investigations for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the vast majority of complaints that we get are on patrol officers that are working patrol assignments. We do occasionally have complaints on our detectives, obviously, but the vast majority are on the patrol officers. So it makes that separation of the divisions in the department, where we have that, what we consider someone that's not in the same chain of command of the officer that's being complained on. If it is a detective and we feel there would be a conflict of interest to have the captain investigate that, we can have one of our other commanders act as the internal affairs investigator. I would caution, everybody that if we're going to start a process through the city manager's office, it's not that simple. We do a very detailed job of investigating these complaints. The employees have rights. These complaints, when we do interviews on these complaints, they are video and audio taped. They are read their rights. There's a police officer bill of rights. There's Garrity. There's a whole bunch of laws that apply to when we do an investigation for employment reasons that these employees have to be protected. Their rights have to be protected, or we're going to find ourselves in a lawsuit. So we follow all those procedures. We know them well. We do what I consider an independent investigation of that. Everything's audio and video recorded, witness statements, employees' statements, the affected party as well. We've never had any issue with someone saying that they didn't feel the process was fair. And all the time that I've been here and involved in them. I did them for a while when I was in administrative services. I was the internal affairs investigator. So I've did several of these as myself. They're very detailed. They're very involved, especially when you're talking about serious allegations like profiling or racial bias. That's why they're handled by a division commander or a supervisor. So to set up a process in AJ's office would be cumbersome, to say the least. And I'm not sure exactly how that would work, and still entail make sure that we're doing everything correctly. And we're just good at it, quite frankly. We know how to investigate, so we do a good job of it. If there's ever any question on what we're doing or how we're doing it, I guess we can show you how some of those investigations work. But that's my caution going into this, as far as having AJ set up a separate process outside of the police department.
And Chief, to be clarified where my line of questioning was going, I was really only worried about the intake, not for the internal component of it. Just to clarify for my questions, Bridget, I'm not going to speak for you on yours. That's just mine.
I appreciate the clarification, Rob. It's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And we don't. AJ, like he has stated, he gets complaints once in a while that go directly to his office. I don't recall if there's ever been one about racial profiling, but I know there's been complaints about way we've handled a certain incident, or an officer's done something wrong, or we didn't do our job. You know, we didn't address someone's call for service. So he does get those, but he just forwards them on over to me. So, but yes, other than that, there's no process to notify AJ every time we get one of these complaints. I can tell you over the last 4 years, I think we've had 4 complaints, maybe. So this year, I think we have 2 so far that are racial bias or profiling type complaints.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, again, I don't mean to monopolize. I just have a couple, and this is actually to some of the language. The specific date it says for these reports about the statistical summary of these reports, at least annually to the city council and mayor, and maybe this is just a drafting issue for me particularly, is I prefer having a specific date or a specific time, like the first month of the fiscal year or something of that nature. That's just me. I don't know whether the rest of the council members would prefer that. That just so we know that we're going to get this and they know what the deadline is. I don't know whether the chief would care one way or the other. That's just me personally. So I'm just throwing that out there. If we're redrafting things, I would prefer a specific date. And then I have 2 more, and I promise I'm done. The training, so all employees shall receive initial training. So is there a difference between the initial training versus the regular annual training? And what is the usual time frame? Again, I'm asking this question because usually a lot of the employees I deal with in the nursing facility have like 3 months, 6 months, something of that nature. What is the typical time frame, and is there or does the annual, you just time it out and the annual cancels the initial? How does that work out?
So the initial training on this is provided by the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy when someone goes through their initial certification. If we hire an officer that's already certified, we handle that training in-house. And then every year we do an annual in-service training. And that is usually, sometimes scheduling makes it move a month or so, but we do it over a 3-month period as we work everybody through. And it's usually like April, May, June, or February, March, April, right around that time frame. It's never gotten later. COVID kind of screwed it up this year a little bit because we had to shut down our in-person training classes. But that in-person learning, that is all morphing as we speak. We're training 3 of our officers in-house to be our diversity bias-based profiling instructors. And so they are going through train the trainer, if you will, training right now. So this is all this training that's coming out is all new and fresh for law enforcement. We did do a department-wide implicit bias training last year in 2019 that we brought in Renee Hardman. I don't know if you know her from the West Des Moines City Council. She came in along with one of her past consultants that she used to work with, Kevin Pocorni, and they did a department-wide training on implicit bias. We change it up. We change up the training so it's not the same old thing every time. And we're really excited about what these new instructors that we're training now are going to bring to the table with their personal experiences, along with the training that they're receiving from they're going to the academy for some training, and then we're also enrolling them in some classes, some college level courses on the same topic. So we'll have these experts to not only do the police department, but our hope is to train all of the city of Urbandale and even maybe some outside agencies if they need assistance in this topic area. We're gonna be the experts in-house.
Fantastic. Excellent answer. Then my last question, and I promise I'm done with for the rest of the council. This is actually kind of a substantive question that I was kind of looking at, and I'm kind of going to backtrack in the code section a little bit. It's on the 33.51, the prohibitions. No employee shall engage that section, the first paragraph. Since bias-based profiling shall not be the sole factor in determining the existence of probable cause or a reasonable suspicion or to take police actions against an individual, including custody or arrest, search or frisk, field contact or seizure and forfeiture of property. My one logistical question, I guess, or that I have on this is why a specific word, because if you go to the last line, it says, or the investigatory stop of a motor vehicle is, and again, I am not a criminal law. I'm just trying to regurgitate what I have from my brain. Is not having the stop being included with the individual. So custody and arrest is different than search and frisk, which is different than field contacts, which is different than seizure, which is different than a stop. Is there a reason why stop was not included? Or am I overthinking this? Like, what is, could you maybe expand on that a little bit, if you could?
I'm trying to find that section really quick here.
Yeah.
And it's not popping right up in front of my face here. So, and I don't have the red line version that Councilman Pogge provided. I never had a copy of that. So,
well, I guess then prohibitions would be 3352, the section under. I apologize. I have the red line in front of me.
I'm not sure why it's separated out like that, why it's worded that way. We could definitely reword that and move that up.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting that the motor was prohibited for stop on that, but the stop wasn't included in the individual. I just wanted to ask if that was by design, there was some factor I didn't know, or if there's if the attorneys on the council want to jump in and correct me again. I'm not a criminal law. So I just saw that difference, and I wanted to make sure that the individual also had the stop protection the same as the motor. That's the only reason I bring it up. Other than that, I'm done asking my questions.
I'll go if
All
no
right.
one else is ready.
All right, Bridget, I'll recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank everyone for the time and energy that has gone into this, and Ron for going in there and doing some cleanup work. I also wanted to acknowledge what Jane Robinette said in the public comment period. I want to reassert my desire to set up some sort of mayoral commission based on the input we received at our June meeting. And we discussed this at our August work session. And if memory serves, we identified setting up a commission. A commission isn't necessarily the right word, but a work study group similar to what Al Womble spoke about at the June meeting. He was the large African-American man that used to live in Urbandale that now lives in Des Moines. He was serving on a work group in West Des Moines. And I would really like us to see, and this is independent of what we're doing today, but I think much what, the issues that Jane brought up, I think are very important for us to reconsider, but also we need to have, like Jane said, a robust representation of the diversity of our community come together and give us some advice, because none of us really can speak to that truly. So I wanted to just reiterate that issue, as it came up as one of our top 5 priorities out of the June meeting. And I think it goes along with what we're doing today, continue to do to address the input we received in June and discussed in August.
Okay. Adam, I see your mic's open. Are you wanting to go next?
Yeah, the AJ kind of mentioned it in the beginning a little bit of, we also have the resolution. So we've got this ordinance on profiling, we got the resolution on CALEA. I know there's a little bit of conversation about kind of merging the two together, where CALEA becomes part of the ordinance as well. And Ron, you edited up the ordinance a little bit, but AJ, did you also get some language about what it might look like to put CALEA in this ordinance specifically?
Whoops, I have not yet at this point, based on the action that you folks take tonight. As I've mentioned to a number of you, is that you have an opportunity to do these independently, to merge them in some way. I just haven't done the wordsmithing yet, depending upon the discretion of the council and how you wanted to go.
Okay. So I guess to me, that's one of the things that, while profiling is obviously important and we do not want that to be happening, there's 400 and some odd other policies that CALEA stands for today. And I'm guessing that number will continue to change over time. And so while resolution is good, would like to see the CALEA piece added into the ordinance, maybe as its own separate section, or maybe it's even its own separate ordinance to go with it. I just rely on Attorney Bob on drafting ordinance language accordingly to make that work. So that would be my 2 cents worth on this.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Any other comments?
Bob, Dave Russell here. I would just first of all like to thank AJ, the staff, and Chief. This has been well thought out. This has been a process that I believe has been very well vetted, and just want to thank them for all of their times and their efforts And I would support the ordinance as proposed, as it is coming to us, recommended by, and in support by our police chief as well. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Dave. You've all seen Ron's edits, I guess.
Mayor, if I may speak, what I would propose is that at this time I would move to amend the proposed ordinance as shown in the red line version, which was circulated to council. And I don't know what Nicole does as far as voting on that, but.
I hear her typing fast and furious, so I think she's doing it on the fly here, so give her a second. That's the benefit of being in the chambers here, so. Is that what you're doing? So Ron, is your intent to make a motion to approve the first reading as amended as you proposed?
Yes, as amended by my red line version.
Okay, so Nicole's coming up with some language for the written motion, so expect that it's coming here through shortly. And then I think Ron can then move that.
And then just procedurally, I did have a couple suggestions. Would we look at that at a future reading then?
We can, Matt. I think again, this is the first reading tonight. So if you want to wordsmith it a little bit more, there's the opportunity to do that, and we can we can look at further wordsmithing in 2 weeks on the second reading.
Roger.
And
is that all right? Does that work? Okay.
And I'll add on that too, if we could maybe see what an amendment would look like to add CALEA into this piece, assuming the resolution later gets approved.
Okay.
You know, I
why don't I
go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I was going to say, why don't we get this out and then we can circulate it as approved tonight under the first reading, and then anybody who has any suggestions can get them in to AJ and the chief before the next meeting. And certainly then also AJ and the chief can work on some proposed CALEA language as well. Is that, Ron, is that?
Well, I don't have a problem with an ordinance requiring the CALEA certification, but I think it should be separate from this because I think they are two different issues, and it might be better to have two. Now, I will also admit, and I'll defer to someone with more legislative experience like Matt as to the difference between a resolution requiring something as opposed to an ordinance requiring it. But I'm not adverse to either way, but I think it should be separate from this, separate ordinance from this if we're going to go that route.
And from Ron, from my perspective, I know the legislative level. I don't know maybe the city perspective of it. The resolution to me sounds like it would be more of this is our promise and this is from the council and what we do, while the ordinance is something that is obviously codified and something that people could look up and look and see. I wouldn't see any difference. I don't have any problem with either version, but I do agree that I would prefer them being separate. If you want to elevate the resolution to an ordinance, I have no problem, but I do agree that I think that there is a little bit of, there's an intent between the two, and tying them together is not awful, but I would prefer just having them separate, and I would support both, but that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and mine was just that we get CALEA more than just a resolution. If it's separate, that's fine.
This is a problem with having too many lawyers on the council.
And I think, and check and see if the voting or the motions are available for you, if so desired. Right? a motion by Blake and second by Carberry Montgomery.
Excuse me, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, that item passes. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask a comment?
Sure.
All of the products, read council materials, either my phone or my iPad, none of them have Word on them. So I was unable to see the redlined, what we just approved. And can the next draft, can someone make sure that someone sends it to me as a PDF?
Bridget, I can do that
Okay.
either later tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll just send you a PDF of the.
Okay.
Of the thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Again, this is an important step. I appreciate everyone's comments tonight, and I think this is a work in process, and I appreciate everybody working hard to get to the point where we are. So, and we're not done yet, but this is certainly a very important step. So, thank you to everybody who's contributed to this. All right, we will move on then to item 8. Item 8.1 is to establish a public hearing to request a portion of a surface water flowage easement, and our Chief Planner Christy Bales will answer any questions if there are. Other than that, it's a motion to establish a December 1, 2020 public hearing date.
And I do have a motion by Obrecht, second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Moving on to item 9, regular agenda items. Item 9.1, the Urbandale Police Department maintain accreditation with the CLIA. And we've obviously had some discussion on this. But AJ, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I think we pretty much covered this, but at the same time, this was the companion piece to the ordinance that you passed. I would add that I'll work with the chief and the city attorney to clean up the first ordinance based on the red lines and the other comments. And certainly at a future date, as the mayor mentioned, this is really good work to begin with. Certainly it could be subject to any further amendments that you'd wish to make. But as an independent item, the resolution, and just to follow up on a question, and I'll defer also to the city attorney, the difference between the ordinance and the resolution. The ordinance does become codified. It's subject to a public hearing and 3 separate readings. A resolution can be taken by action by the council at a single meeting and can be changed by a council at another single meeting. So procedurally, it has, if you wish to term it that way, it has less steps. And if you're looking to have something in the ordinance which is codified, that it requires essentially much more thought and many more actions to make those changes. And so that is the basic difference. I just wanted to point that out. So the resolution, you see those a number of times with a variety of things that we bring to your attention. And a resolution is just that resolution of support. And it requires that vote that evening, and then you're done with it. So those are the big major differences. Again, would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the CALEA support. This is, as we've mentioned numerous times, a very important program for our department. It's been in place since 2013. I think it is, it's a wonderful tool for us. It's a tool that says, and the accreditation process says that we have gone through the effort, energy, and we stand at the top of the profession. And I'm really quite proud to have been involved in that process that we've had here. And I think it says volumes for our police department as far as the level of professional attainment. And so many and so few of the eligible agencies in the state have it. I think it's less than 10. And if you think about 900 plus cities, 99 counties, the Regent universities, other law enforcement based agencies that have chosen not to do this, I think it really is, it speaks volumes for our department. Again, not saying that that because of human element that we do everything right all the time. Well, we certainly strive that way, and the CALIA process certainly keeps us on that course.
Thanks, AJ. So, given that there was some discussion on having an ordinance to either, I guess, we could pass this tonight as a resolution and then still consider an ordinance, or just table this for tonight and consider it for an ordinance. So.
Yep.
This is Ron, and after AJ's expertise, which I appreciate, I think Adam's concerns make a lot of sense, and we ought to do it as an ordinance. So I think maybe we ought to table this and let staff come back with an ordinance that does this. I would note my red line on this changes one thing, and Matt and I have to be talking about it, and we agreed that if CLIA tomorrow announces that it's out of business, we need a stopgap in here or a similar one, so kind of protect us. So.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Ron. And I think if there's consensus that we'll just table this and bring it back, I don't think we need any motion tonight. So if somebody has any further comments, we'll move on. All right. We will move on then. Hearing none. Moving to item 9.2 is ordinance 2020-21 regarding traffic regulations. And to introduce this item is our city engineer, Dave McKay. Dave.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, if you could let me share.
Privileges are coming your way, Dave.
Okay, tell me when you can see. Okay. Okay, so what we have before you tonight is the area around Webster Elementary. Currently on 128th Street, we have a school zone that covers from the north boundary of the school through the intersection of Aurora Avenue. And the crossing is at the intersection there for the students east-west across 128th Street. There is no crossing that's allowed on Aurora. And the speed limit on Aurora is 25 miles an hour from 128th to the west boundary, and then goes up to 35 through here. The request came into our office to consider making it a school zone on Aurora Avenue also, to draw attention for all motorists that this is a school zone, and I really can't argue that fact. Speed limits won't change because you know, it'll remain. It is at 25, and it will remain at 25 during school hours with the school zone. So the ordinance change that you have before you does two things. One, it establishes a school zone, which is a green line through here. And it will have the beacons and the red dots right here at each end, and they will be flashing during school hours. And the other thing we're doing is taking the speed limit and removing this 25-mile-an-hour section. So this would be 35 miles an hour unless the beacons are flashing, then it would be 25 miles an hour. The other thing, just to show you, that is what the beacons will look like at both ends here. This is out in 170th by Radiant, but the same beacons would be used in this situation. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Dave Russell, would we be required to provide any additional crossing guards now that it's designated as a school zone? Or
No.
would the number of guards and the location of those guards remain as they are today? Thanks.
Yeah, we would not be changing anything with the crossings, and so the guards would remain the same, and the crossings would remain the same.
Okay, any further questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Motion by Obrecht, second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote.
Change me over to a yes. Nicole, please.
Perfect.
That passes. Thank you. 1, 2. Wait, we only have. Did Matt not vote on it?
I had something on my screen that said defeated.
There we go. Now we got it. Now we show all 5 voting passed. Okay. That item passes. Item 9.3 is to consider the purchase of custom-built shop furniture for the Parks and Public Works Maintenance Facility Project. And Dave will answer any questions if there are.
The motion by Pogge, second by Blake.
Any discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 9.4 is to consider the final acceptance of the Meredith Drive paving project from 156th Street to 170th Street. Dave.
And again, no, Nicole, if I could get the share content.
All right, should be passed over to you here, Dave.
Okay. Okay, so the Meredith Drive paving project, 156 to 170th, we have the final assessments and acceptance of the project before you tonight. The final construction cost was $4,240,985.56. This was a little over $180,000 or 4.1% less than the contract amount that you approved originally. We are holding open a supplemental contract for restoration, $36,700. And this will take care of the warranty period for getting the landscaping going, the grass going, fertilizing, watering. They actually mow it for the first year or until it gets established. And if it needs overseeding, they will provide overseeding as part of that supplemental contract. As far as assessments go, the preliminary assessments to final assessments dropped about 75,000, and the cities from preliminary to final reduced about 30% for this project. So both good news. For the assessments, the streets, we had 67 total assessments. 57 of those were paid off ahead of the project, and that was done at the time of final plat. We had 10 properties that were new assessments. 7 of those have signed off with acreage reduction agreements with the city. 2 of the properties, 2 of those 10 are owned by the city. So there is 1 property out there that is been assessed and is just paying the assessment up front. So all that is good news. As far as this sidewalks go, we had 35 assessments, 18 properties have been prepaid. 6 of those were bonded for that. We've received the funding for it. And then we had 11 that were new assessments. And then this is the assessment plats, actually 2 pages. This is the east end. This is the west end. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave?
Can you explain to me a little bit more about what an acreage assessment reduction is?
Okay. Can't remember the year, but going back to 142nd Street project south of the roundabout, the city was sued, and on our assessment process, and we, Bob Layden might have to help me here, but we won in the district court and lost when it was appealed. And we did not, we pretty much took what was, what the result of that lawsuit was and put it into an agreement to offer it up. The real problem we had was with large acreages because it's one person, it's one family, and some of the frontages could be large, and so the amounts were large. And so the problems we have out there weren't the residential lots. This was the larger acreage lots were the issue. And so going forward, to prevent us from being sued again in the future, we offered a discount to acreages. And so we defined what an acreage was, and the person to get it has to sign off an agreement saying that you won't sue us. You know, basically, we'll give you a reduction. And that's gone through a number of iterations and challenges. And with the Douglas Avenue project, 156 West was the time when we offered the 50% reductions. I think it had been less before that, and it got increased to 50%. Since that time, we have not had any challenges, and it's been very successful in the past years, is what I would say. So it's it's kind of been a moving target over the years, but for the last number of years, the 50% reduction for the acreages with the signed agreement has been very successful. And the way it works is that they're signing off that they are not developing the property. And if they do develop the property, they have to pay us back. So if a property had a $20,000 assessment, they signed the agreement, we reduce the street assessment down by 50%. And then if they develop after 5 years, they have to pay us back 50% of that 50% reduction we gave them. So it does go down. If they're in the 9th year, they only have to pay back a 1/10 of their discount. And that happens. Just the other day, I think maybe at the last meeting or two, AC Harrelson had signed off on one of those on Douglas Avenue, and he was the house was no longer occupied. They removed the house, and so the agreement was no longer in effect. They paid us back.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or discussions? If not, we have a number of motions that we need to run through.
And I have a motion by Obrecht, second by Carberry Montgomery to approve resolution 221, 2020.
Okay, discussion, please vote. That passes.
Give me a moment as I'm clicking through all my buttons here. I have a motion by Obrecht, second by Blake to, oh, I went to the wrong one, I apologize. I apologize, I sent the wrong thing through. I will resend this through for resolution 229-2020. The motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
have a motion by Obrecht, second by Blake to approve resolution 222, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Blake to approve resolution 223, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
A motion by Blake, second by Obrecht to approve the contract for 4510-156.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
A motion by Blake, second by Obrecht to approve the contract for 15708 Meredith.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
Motion by Obrecht, second by Blake to approve the contract for 15817 Meredith Drive.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
And a motion by Obrecht, second by Carberry Montgomery to approve the contract for 15906 Meredith Drive.
Any discussion, please vote. That passes.
The motion by Blake, second by Obrecht to approve the contract for 16016 Meredith Drive.
Okay, discussion, please vote. That passes.
And I have a motion by Blake, second by Carberry Montgomery to approve the contract for 16407 Meredith Drive.
Okay, discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. They all passed. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to Dave. This is a complicated one, and just to supplement Dave's comments on the acreage reduction. And we've gone through this through a lot of years, as Dave alluded to. And the question is always what's fair for a particular landowner versus what's fair for taxpayers of the whole city as far as the division of the cost of a project. And you always have to, the law requires us to look at what's the special benefit to a particular property versus the general benefit to all our taxpayers. And so what I've learned over the years, it's much more of an art than a science, and we've been challenged on it, and unfortunately we've come out on the short end of it, but I think we've come up with a mechanism now that has in recent years worked pretty well to try to be fair to individual property owners, but also fair to our taxpayers as a whole. So Dave, thanks again for all your work on that. All right, moving on to item 9.5, and that's to consider the supplemental design services agreement for the Hickman Road Viaduct Trail construction. I believe we were maybe going to table this today. Did you want to introduce the item first?
I really think it's fine just to table it, and we'll bring it back at a future date if it's successful with the CIP committee.
Okay, thank you. So we will table that for tonight. Item 9.6 is to consider the professional services contract for the feasibility and economic impact study. And to introduce this is our Assistant Economic Development Director, Aaron DeYoung. Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, here to present to you a recommendation to approve HVS Convention Sports and Entertainment for a feasibility and economic impact study related to a redevelopment at Merle Hay Mall. We had 8 proposals that we reviewed. Thanks to Christy Bales and Dave McKay to also help Curtis and I with review of those 8 applications or proposals. So we felt that HVS was the best suited for this work, and so we're recommending their approval. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron?
Aaron, what's the time frame on getting this done?
We are shooting to have most of the work done in early January so that we can have the report by the end of January to incorporate into future work for the project.
Okay, any further? If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Pogge to approve Resolution 232, 2020.
Any discussion? Please vote.
Move me over, please.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Matt. Item 9.7 is to consider a conflict waiver letter regarding the joint legal representation on the joint reinvestment district and the 2080 agreement between Urbandale and Des Moines. Aaron?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. This is to have Des Moines and Urbandale agree to have Ehlers do some work on 28E entity preparation for us related to Merle Hay Mall for a future application for the Iowa Reinvestment Act with the state of Iowa. So we will need to do this work here in the next few months for that application.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. Okay, thank you. That passes. That takes us to the end of our regular agenda. Item 10, Mayor and Council items. I'm going to start at the opposite end of the virtual dais tonight, so I'm looking over, Adam, where you should be sitting. I'll turn it over to you first.
All right, well, thank you. And last night we had our first Capital Improvements Committee meeting. So with co-chair Carberry Montgomery, we got through the whole book in one night with only one bio break. So that was an accomplishment. And Thursday night, there's a handful of projects that some additional questions have been asked on. And so we will talk about those and see if we can get through to have a product to be recommended to the council after Thursday night's meeting. So thank you to the staff for getting everything all prepared and getting the process as chairing it to run as smooth as could be with the small technical glitches we had. So it was a good night.
All right, great. Thank you to Adam. Thank you to Bridget to be on that committee this year and to be running that. So thanks for that. Bridget.
First, I'll echo what Adam said. It was a marathon meeting, 3 hours and 15 minutes, but it was good to get through the whole book and all the projects, and appreciate the hard work of the staff, Jan and Dave and AJ and all the finance staff and everybody that put that together. That's quite an epic piece of work that comes to us nicely packaged in a little binder. I have a couple of things. First of all, going back to what I said during our discussion on the racial profiling, I would like us to move forward on setting up some sort of mayoral task force on diversity and racial equity in Urbandale, as a follow-up to our work in June and as one of the items identified in our work session in August. And I'd like to see that happen in the next few meetings. And then I was really appreciative of our community members that spoke out at the beginning of our meeting regarding a mask mandate. I feel the mayor or the governor, made a big step forward last night in her proclamations. I am looking forward to seeing what the mayor has alluded to coming out of Polk County later this week, but also during the meeting, I got word that Waukee is going to be fully online by the end, which means that all of our, I believe, school districts in our boundaries are going to be online, which I think says a great deal about what's going on in our community. And if need be, I would like us to have a, following whatever comes out of Polk County, if we need to have a follow-up meeting to discuss a more targeted ordinance or mandate. I think we need to do that, but I'm hopeful that what comes out of Polk County will be adequate or more than adequate to get our community on board with this public health crisis that we're in right now.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Anything from DART recently, or?
I think we had a meeting today as our last meeting, but I'm meeting with staff tomorrow, City Urbandale staff and DART staff. We're having a meeting to discuss potential new service in Urbandale. So I'm looking forward to learning more specifics about that, but it's always exciting at DART. There's always drama and intrigue. So y'all should be jealous that you're not involved with DART. So
you should say that about me.
At a new funding formula, which is separate from what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but that funding formula will quite significantly, in my estimation, reduce what Urbandale residents. That means that other communities are significantly increasing what they have to pay. So finding a balance is critical to get transit to all parts of our community that need it to support our workers and affordable housing and human services.
All right. Well, thanks for that update. Yeah, I know they were having a discussion on that. I just didn't know where the discussion stood. So thanks for that. Ron.
The only thing I'd say is that I thank the governor for her latest proclamation that she's moving gradually toward requiring masks. And I'm just hoping when we go into grocery stores in Urbandale, they will require people to have masks, which I think is required under her proclamation. So that would, I think, ease a lot of people's mind to just see masks in the grocery stores. But other than that, don't have anything.
Thank you. Matt?
First, I would like to say thank you to AJ and Chief for the racial bias profiling ordinance that we talked about. I know I came out with a lot of questions, and I sometimes forget to say thank you for the since I do appreciate all the work and I do appreciate our law enforcement. I maybe feel like sometimes I come down slightly hard, just maybe because I'm also a uniformed service member that happens to also be the one that enforces on that side. So I think I have a lot of opinions about it sometimes, and I forget to thank you for your service as well. So just wanted to emphasize that that I am a proud supporter of all of you. I just sometimes maybe it's like a child. You want to make sure you may treat them a little bit more harshly but nonetheless I do support. And I'm also looking forward to the mask mandate as from Polk County, whatever version or whatever, or maybe non-mask mandate or enhanced, whatever version it is. I look forward to seeing it, and I look forward to seeing how we can maybe potentially implement it. The last thing I have is actually a Bravo update. We did yesterday. We did a roundtable, which is very timely for our discussion today, on equity and how Bravo can be more equitable organization throughout the metro, and how we can be more inclusive in equity when it comes to the funding and our funding partners. So I sat through about an hour and a half of that yesterday. So even though there is some income issues when it comes to it, and I think Bravo has sent that information out, so I won't repeat it. There is some issues they have, but they are still chugging forward when it comes to it. And we've had a discussion that I will try to maintain my seat on Bravo, because actually we tend to have early morning meetings, and from the Middle East, that will actually time out well. So we'll see how that works, but I hope to be able to continue to be on that board even from afar. And that's it from me.
All right, thanks, Matt. Dave.
Well, as you can see, welcome back. I'm alive and well and fully recovered from COVID-19. I don't know how many of you are in this club now. They tell me it's the 98.5% club of us who have recovered. It's not fun. I had what I would call probably a moderate case. What is surprising, I do not know of anyone who probably was more of an adherent to masks than I was. I wore a mask every day. I wore a mask everywhere we went. I wore a mask to in the grocery stores. I wore a mask in my office. I wore a mask in my law office with the door closed. I did all the social distancing, did everything that you're supposed to do. And I still got it. So, warning out there, I don't know how, don't know where. I racked my brains thinking, where could I have come in contact with it? So, the mask is not necessarily for me the panacea. Oh, if I got my mask on, I'm never going to get that stuff. Well, I think that's a false sense that I had anyway. So, but had good nursing care with my wife. We never had to leave the home. There was never any breathing distress issues, and just tired. And Matt, I think you and I talked about some of the similar symptoms that you had earlier on. But quite frankly, I'm glad I had it, got it over with, and my COVID-19 experience, I hope, is behind me. Here's another thing. The entire time, I was in isolation from Mary, but she was here in the house. She never displayed any symptoms at all, and she still hasn't. I'm going to go in tomorrow for what I'm going to call my second negative test at Iowa testing. I've got a 1:30 appointment. I've already tested once since then, so you're fine. And I'm going to go back in again tomorrow to get that second test, and hopefully recover from that. So have a safe Thanksgiving, and do everything it needs to get done to try to ward off this virus. And again, it wasn't deadly. It wasn't, I didn't feel threatened in the sense that health-wise, it just wasn't fun. As Matt said, it was just crappy. I had about 3 days there that it was just crappy, and I would rather not have gone through that again. So stay safe out there, and all of you have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you, Dave. We're glad you're on the backside of that. That's for sure. So great for that. But again, it's also, as you said, even taking measures, it still shows that it can be happening. So it just goes to show that we just need to be vigilant. Nicole and I are sitting here in the chambers tonight. We're 20 feet apart, but you know, I'm still going to be wearing my mask here tonight. Nicole has her mask on here tonight, and you know, that's what we need to be doing, and we need to be leaders in this. And you know, as alluded to, you know, I will keep you apprised. I anticipate there's going to be further action here that I think we can maybe supplement on. So, you know, this is something we need to take very seriously. This is something we need to be leaders on. So I appreciate everybody's comments on it, and you know, we're going to get through this. It's just, but this is a critical time, as everybody's aware. So I just, you know, and we'll keep moving forward on it. So with that, ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
This is Ron. I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Have a great evening. Thank you, everybody.